Inventions power and change our world. They take humanity to new levels of sophistication and open up brand new opportunities. Just 300 years ago, we lived a cold and bleak existence. Everything was difficult. Travel was slow, communications were limited to quill and paper, and the paper had to be moved around by horses. Minor medical ailments could signal almost instant death. We lived a simple, limited life, powered by candles and characterised by hardship and drudgery. But thanks to groundbreaking and revolutionary discoveries and inventions, today we find ourselves living in a completely different world. We can circumnavigate the globe in hours, not months. We can communicate with anyone, anywhere on the face of the earth and beyond. We're all equipped with the sum of all human knowledge in the form of the internet in our pockets. Soon it'll be in our brains. In just 300 years, we've come a long way. Let's have a quick look at 12 of the world's major innovations and discoveries that have got us to this point. The electric battery, Alessandro Volta, 1800. The computer, Charles Babbage, 1822. Photography, Joseph Nicephore Niepce, 1826. The telephone, Alexander Graham Bell, 1876. The light bulb, Thomas Edison, 1879. The car, Carl Benz, 1885. Radio, Guglielmo Marconi, 1895. Flight, the Wright brothers, 1903. Television, John Logie Baird, 1925. The discovery of penicillin, Alexander Fleming, 1928. The jet engine, Sir Frank Whittle, 1937. The World Wide Web, Tim Berners-Lee, 1989. What do you find unusual about that list? It's all men, isn't it? The list is very male. You could be forgiven for thinking that it's only men who invent things. In fact, a Wikipedia timeline of historic inventions from the beginning of the 17th century to 1944 lists 214 inventions of particular note. 214! These are the inventions that shaped our world. And of those inventions, men accounted for 214 of them. So have women invented nothing, or do we just have men to thank for the world we live in today? Of course they've invented things. They've invented lots of things. If it wasn't for women, we wouldn't have liquid paper or windscreen wipers. Rainy days and grammatical errors are easier to cope with today, and that's thanks to women. So I've decided to put the record straight. It's time to redress the balance and highlight the famous inventions made by women. None of the inventions that I'm about to show you made it onto Wikipedia's historic list of inventions. So I'm going to rate them myself. I'm going to mark each out of 20 across 4 categories. For each category, there's 5 points up for grabs, 20 in total. They are usefulness, ability to change the world, originality, and ingenuity. Let's go. The square-bottomed paper bag-making machine by Margaret Knight. Margaret Eloise Knight was an American inventor, and she's possibly the most famous 19th century woman inventor. She became a symbol of women's empowerment. Amongst her remarkable 87 granted patents was a 1913 internal combustion engine, despite the fact that it had already been invented in 1860. But she also invented a machine that made square-bottomed paper bags. Her machine folded and glued the paper bags, and they became really popular with shoppers, particularly in the United States. She started the Eastern Paper Bag Company in 1870, and the bags remained popular throughout the 20th century. I'm English, so I only get to see these bags when I'm watching reruns of Cagney and Lacey. But I'm going to give her bag-making machine 3 for usefulness, 1 for changing the world, 3 for originality, and 2 for ingenuity. That's 9 out of 20 for Margaret Knight's square-bottomed paper bag-making machine. She could have earned more if she'd put handles on the bags. I grew up in the 70s on American shows. For a while, I wasn't sure I was English. I was once told off at school for writing the word colour without a U. But I always wondered why people in America would struggle into the kitchen, holding a paper bag in their arms as if they're holding a baby. As a child, I thought it was done for comedic effect. But no, it was because of Margaret Knight's square-bottomed paper bag-making machine. Liquid Paper by Betty Graham. In 1956, Betty Graham was a typist, and she used to get particularly annoyed if ever she made a mistake. She's only human, and mistakes do happen, but that's not how Betty saw things. She began looking for ways to correct her mistakes without having to start over. After experimenting with various concoctions in her kitchen, no doubt helped by her son Michael, who was 14 at the time, she hit upon a formula that could easily be applied over errors. It dried quickly and allowed for corrections to be easily overtyped. It was a major breakthrough. By 1968, the company was renamed Liquid Paper. The company was sold to Gillette in 1979, and very sadly, Betty died the following year. The invention of liquid paper touched everyone's lives. It went on to be used around the world, and it was enough for Betty Graham to be remembered forever. But it's not the only reason she'll be remembered forever. When she died in 1980, she left us with liquid paper and a monkey. Her son Michael went on to become the legendary monkey Michael Naismith. Between the invention of liquid paper and the company's subsequent sale in 1979, Michael Naismith and the monkeys would take the world by storm. I'm going to give Betty Graham's liquid paper 5 for usefulness, 2 for changing the world, 3 for originality, and 4 for ingenuity. I'm also introducing a special category just for Betty, and that's monkey contribution. I'm giving her a 5 for her contribution to the monkeys. That's an overall score of 19 for Betty Graham. She gave us liquid paper and, incredibly, a monkey. Anti-jamming radio guidance for World War II torpedoes by Hedy Lamarr. Hedy Lamarr was an American actress who starred in a string of movies throughout the 1930s and 1940s, including the romantic drama Algiers, the western Boomtown, the drama White Cargo, and her career-defining epic Samson and Delilah. As well as an extremely successful actress, Hedy Lamarr was also a prolific inventor. In her spare time at weekends, and even during breaks on set, she would work on her inventions, such as an improved traffic stoplight and a tablet that, when dissolved into water, made a flavoured carbonated drink. But her most famous invention was made with her husband, George. During World War II, she was aware that the Axis powers were jamming radio signals being used to guide torpedoes. She developed a frequency hopping system designed to thwart Hitler, but sadly it was never adopted by the Allies. The system was inspired by the synchronizing of pianos in music. She realized that radio frequencies could be synchronized in the same way. Down and dejected by rejection, sadly Hedy Lamarr didn't develop her system any further. But incredibly, the principles of her patent would be many years later incorporated into Bluetooth and Wi-Fi technology. You're probably watching this video now with technology invented by Hedy Lamarr, a Hollywood actress from the 30s and 40s. I'm giving her frequency hopping system 5 for usefulness, 5 for changing the world, 5 for originality, and 5 for ingenuity. She's the first female inventor to sweep the board on my list. Hedy Lamarr was even honoured on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 1960. What a woman. Mary Anderson, the windscreen wiper. Mary Anderson's moment of brilliance came on a winter's day in New York City, when she saw the driver of a trolley car struggling to keep his windscreen clear. As the rain and snow hit the trolley bus windscreen, the driver had either to lean out of the trolley to clear it, or stop the trolley altogether just to maintain visibility. Mary wasn't an engineer, but she was an entrepreneur. She could see a problem and a solution. Maybe a movable blade could be fixed somehow onto the outside of the vehicle, which could be operated from inside the vehicle. It might seem obvious to us now, but at the time, this solution had not occurred to anyone else. Mary had a prototype made which consisted of a spring-loaded blade and an interior control device. In 1903, she received a 17-year patent. By 1905, she attempted to sell the design through an agent, who declined the idea by pompously stating, "We do not consider it to be of such commercial value as would warrant our undertaking its sale." Others commented that the blade would cause more trouble than it solved, as it would distract drivers, causing them to crash. Were these people crazy? By 1920, Mary's patent ran out. By 1922, windscreen wipers were being added to cars, which by then were being produced at an exponential rate. Mary received no money and no recognition for her groundbreaking invention, but she's going to get recognition here from me. I'm giving Mary Anderson's windscreen wiper 5 for usefulness, 5 for changing the world, 5 for originality, and 5 for ingenuity. According to the National Inventors Hall of Fame, Mary Anderson's windscreen wiper was just too ahead of its time. The narrow-minded people that Mary came across just couldn't see a groundbreaking idea when they saw one. The next time you're in a car on a rainy day, think about Mary. Companies and individuals were able to profit from Mary's idea, and she didn't receive a penny. For shame! Ruth Wakefield and her chocolate chip cookies. When Ruth Wakefield introduced her chocolate chip cookies to the world in 1938, many people thought it was a mistake, and they were partly correct. She did intend initially on creating just a normal chocolate cookie, but she ran out of the necessary ingredients. She owned the Toll House Inn, and she wanted to create something new for her customers. She said she was trying to come up with something different, and she called it the Toll House Cookie, or Cookie, depending on where you come from. I come from Stoke-on-Trent, and that makes it a cookie. Once she added the chocolate to the cookie dough and baked it, she noticed that the small chips held their form. The chunky pea-sized chocolate chips held their form during the baking process. She always insisted that she expected that to happen. Her new cookie was an instant hit. Customers came from miles around to sample her brand new treat, and it even featured in local newspapers. Nestle snapped up the recipe, and she received a payment for recipe rights, a lifetime supply of baking chocolate, and a consulting deal. I'm giving Ruth Wakefield's chocolate chip cookie 1 for usefulness, 2 for changing the world, 5 for originality, and 4 for ingenuity. That's a highly creditable 12 out of 20 for the 1938 chocolate chip cookie. Please allow me just 15 seconds to plug this channel. Very Nearly Interesting is a brand new channel, and I need all the help I can get. Please hit that like button if you've enjoyed this video. That's how YouTube knows you like it, and they'll show it to more people. And please consider subscribing. That way, we might see you again. Margaret Wilcox and the invention of the car heater. Margaret Wilcox demonstrated perfectly the headwinds that were against female inventors, particularly in the 19th century. They weren't supposed to be inventing things. That was a man's business. Around 1890, she invented a combined dishwasher and clothes washing machine. Who wouldn't want one of those? But it was illegal at the time for a woman to file her own patent. Outrageously, she had to put her invention in her husband's name. It's Margaret's story that should underline to us that female inventions, particularly over 100 years ago, were made despite a system that was clearly rigged against them. Women had to fight twice as hard as men for the opportunities and the recognition, but fight they did, and we're all better off as a result. Women came up with inventions that were obvious ideas that were staring men in the face. Remember the windscreen wiper? If it was up to the men of the day, we'd all be driving around today with our head stuck out of the sunroof, wearing goggles. The men of the day thought the windscreen wiper was a terrible idea. No! They just couldn't see the wood for the trees. Margaret Wilcox was a case in point. Sitting in a freezing cold train in Chicago, she could see no reason why the residual heat from the train's engine couldn't be used to heat the train cars. Of all the male engineers that designed the train, none, it seems, made this simple deduction. Up steps Margaret Wilcox. She invented a car heating system, and mercifully, by 1893, she was able to patent it under her own name and get the full credit for her idea. Her system did have some drawbacks, though. She didn't include temperature regulation in her system, which led to the cars becoming way too hot. This was soon ironed out, though, and train journeys in Chicago soon became much more comfortable. Fast forward to 1929, and Ford began to produce fully enclosed automobiles. They used Margaret Wilcox's patented design to keep the inhabitants of the car warm and cosy. Margaret sadly didn't see the fruition of her invention as she died in 1912. But thankfully, she did get the credit she deserved, and here we are, still talking about it today. Of course, I'm giving Margaret Wilcox's car heater invention full marks across the board. It's her design and invention that keeps your toes warm and cosy on those freezing cold winter mornings. And she did it just like the majority of female inventors at the time, in spite of the major obstacles blocking her way. I've put an incredible Wikipedia link in the description of this video. It lists hundreds of female inventions, all of which have shaped our world, and very few of which that you've ever heard of. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, please click the like button. That way YouTube will show it to more people. And please consider subscribing. That way I might see you again. And please have a look at some of the other content on the channel. There's lots of interesting things on there. Well, very nearly interesting.